He was my fake boyfriend at the wedding until he whispered, "Want to make it real tonight?" Zaya and Ethan's story. It started with a lie, a small, desperate, socially necessary lie. My cousin's wedding was the kind of event that people in small towns prepared for, like it was the Met Gala. Everyone was buzzing with excitement. Pinterest boards came to life. Chiffon exploded everywhere, and the WhatsApp group chat was basically a war zone of bridal opinions. And yet, in the middle of all this, I was still painfully single. "You're not bringing anyone, Zaya?" My mother asked with the kind of judgment only mothers possess. "Even your younger cousin is bringing that boy with the man bun. At least pretend you have a life." I had a life, just not the kind that came with a plus one. I would have gone solo, proud and peaceful Tamai, until I found out David was coming. My ex, with her. The girl with the teeth-whitening smile and traitor eyebrows. The girl I once trusted enough to share hair care tips with, back when I was stupid and soft. And that's when Ethan came into the picture. We weren't strangers. We weren't close, either. He was more of a mutual vibe. The kind of guy you always noticed in group settings, who always offered you the last spring roll at dinner and remembered that your favorite wine was Merlot, not Shiraz. The kind of guy who listened. He was the guy who always sat too close during game nights, shared playlists that made me question my sanity, and looked at me like he was memorizing every freckle on my face. We were complicated. So when I messaged him with, "Hey, random question, want to be my fake boyfriend for a wedding?" I was expecting a big lull no, but his reply came 10 seconds later. "Do I get cake?" The day of the wedding, he showed up like he was born to ruin hearts. Deep navy suit, black dress shirt, no tie, just enough rebellion. His dark curls were swept back, and he wore this smirk like he knew every woman there would be watching him. He stepped out of the car, looked at me, and exhaled. "Damn, Zaya," he said. "Remind me again why this is fake." I tried to laugh, but my lungs weren't cooperating. "Because we like our sanity?" He took my hand, warm, firm, gentle. "Speak for yourself." We walked into the wedding hand in hand like we'd done it 100 times before. My aunties blinked like I'd brought Idris Elba home. The gossip started before we even got to the seating area. Ethan leaned in, lips brushing the shell of my ear. "You okay?" I nodded. "Better now." His smile warmed something inside me I didn't even know was frozen. The ceremony was a blur, a swirl of violins, tears, and rose petals, but all I could focus on was him. The way he placed his hand on the small of my back when we walked in, the way his fingers lingered when they touched mine, the way he leaned in during the vows, whispering, "You think they'll say I do, just for the free honeymoon?" I almost snorted champagne out of my nose. When we sat down at the reception, our chairs closed, his knee brushed mine and didn't move. I felt like my whole body was tuned to him. And it didn't help that my ex, David, was sitting across from us with his arm around the girl he'd left me for. David looked smug, until Ethan leaned closer, his lips brushing my temple, and said just loud enough for them to hear, "You smell so good it's distracting." David blinked, his girlfriend stiffened, and I melted. Throughout the evening, Ethan played the part so well it hurt. He knew everyone's names, made my aunt laugh so hard she cried, danced with my niece like he'd known her for years, complimented my mom and helped my grandma with her phone. He was charming, effortlessly so. But it was the little things that got to me. The way he'd whisper jokes in my ear, the way his thumb brushed over my hand absent-mindedly, the way he looked at me like I was something sacred. We shared glances across the table like secrets, smiles that lasted too long, touches that lingered like confessions waiting for pussy. He slid my chair out when I sat. He refilled my drink before I realized it was empty. He reached over during dinner, brushing a crumb from the corner of my mouth with his thumb, lingering for just a second longer than necessary. "You've got a little," he murmured, voice low, his fingers soft against my skin. "Oh," I breathed, "thanks. You always taste this sweet?" I blinked, cheeks burning. "Ethan," I whispered, half laughing, half flustered. "What?" He grinned. "I'm method acting." David and his eyebrow villain girlfriend were seated across from us. Of course. "So, this is the new guy?" David said, trying to sound casual but coming off like sour milk. Ethan barely looked up as he cut his steak. "I'm not new, just finally in the picture." My fork nearly slipped. David scoffed. Didn't think you'd move on so fast. Ethan looked up then, gaze sharp but calm. Why? You did. I squeezed his thigh under the table. He covered my hand with his, laced our fingers and rubbed small circles into my palm. You okay? He asked under his breath. More than okay, I whispered. During a slow dance, Ethan pulled me close. His hands rested on my waist like they belonged there. My arms looped around his neck, fingers tangling gently in his curls. You're a really good fake boyfriend, I said softly. He chuckled, warm and low. Thanks. I've been practicing on my pillow. I swatted his arm. You're ridiculous. He leaned in, forehead nearly resting against mine. You smell like vanilla and sin. Ethan. Zaya. A beat, a pulse, a breath. I like touching you, he whispered, brushing his fingers along the bare skin of my back. Even if it's pretend, it doesn't feel pretend to me. My chest ached in the most delicious way. We swayed slowly, and in that moment, it wasn't about David or exes or pretending. It was just Ethan, his warmth, his voice in my ear, his thumb tracing lazy circles into the dip of my spine. I kind of want to disappear now, I said. He smiled softly, took my hand. Then let's disappear. Later, we found ourselves behind a curtain of fairy lights and hanging wisteria, hidden from the crowd. I was barefoot, my heels discarded somewhere near a garden bench. Ethan was holding my hand, guiding me over the grass like I was breakable. I've had feelings for you, I blurted, breathless. For a while, before this, before today. He looked at me, his face soft, eyes searching. I know, he said. I did too. I just didn't think you saw me. I did, I whispered. I just didn't know it mattered until you looked at me like that. He stepped closer. You remember last month, that night after Maya's dinner? When you called that Uber and sat next to me the whole ride home? Yeah? I almost kissed you then. My breath hitched. I wish you had. He cupped my face with both hands now, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. Well, he whispered, voice so low I felt it in my knees. I'm gonna kiss you now. And he did. Soft at first. A question, a promise, then deeper, urgent, like he'd been waiting too damn long. His hand slid down to my waist, pulling me against him, and I felt it. All of him. His breath, his heartbeat, his hunger. I clung to his jacket like it was the only thing keeping me from floating away. When we finally pulled apart, dazed and drunk on each other, I said the words out loud. This started with a lie. He smiled that heart-wrenching smile. Then let's end it with the truth. And that night, behind roses and fairy lights, fingers still tangled in my hair, he whispered, Zaya, want to make it real? And I did. God, I really did. The morning after the wedding, I woke up feeling like the air had changed. Not in a dramatic, movie-worthy way. Just softer, quieter. Like the world had taken a breath and everything felt still for the first time in a long time. And in the center of that stillness was him, Ethan. Not as a role, not as a favor, but as something real. We hadn't slept together. We didn't rush into anything more than the kiss that shattered and rebuilt me all at once. Instead, we'd curled up in the backseat of his car after dropping off my heels and purse, our fingers still intertwined like they didn't want to be alone again. We talked until dawn. Not big, life-altering confessions, just soft, sleepy things. Childhood memories, favorite smells, songs that made us cry. His voice was the kind that could unravel your heart without even trying. He kissed my hand before we said goodbye and promised he'd call. He did. The next morning, before I could spiral into wondering if it had all been a heat-of-the-moment illusion, he sent me a voice note. So, I know we kissed like we were in a Nicholas Sparks adaptation, but I don't want to be just a moment. I want to see you, as in, take you out properly, kind of see you. Also, I can't stop thinking about your laugh, and your perfume, and your lips, but I'll be respectful and stop talking now. I laughed out loud in bed, cheeks flushed, toes curled in the sheets. I texted back, pick me up at 7. I'm craving Thai and honesty. Date 1, a table for 2 and every bit of me. He showed up at my door in a white button-down, sleeves rolled up to his elbows and a bouquet of white tulips. Too much? He asked, a little breathless. Just enough, I said, already falling harder. Dinner was dim lights and slow jazz, and the kind of table that makes knees touch no matter how much space you try to leave between you. I've never dated someone I already had feelings for, I admitted between bites of pad thai. Ethan sipped his drink, watching me over the rim of his glass. I've never dated someone who made my chest hurt when they smiled. We held eye contact too long. That kind of too long that makes your heart stumble. His hand found mine on the table. No big gesture, just a touch, warm, firm, grounding. I want to do this right, he said softly. Not rush, not fumble. I nodded. Me too. And then, because we were us, the moment didn't turn awkward or heavy. He grinned. Although I do plan to kiss you again soon. You better, I whispered, eyes flicking to his lips. He kissed me that night, slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Date 2, Rain, Records, and Revelations. On our second date, it rained. Not the soft, romantic drizzle. No, this was full chaos. Wind, thunder, sideways sheets of water. We ended up at his apartment, soaked and breathless, laughing as he handed me one of his hoodies. You keep hoodies that smell like heaven on standby for emergencies? I teased, wrapping it around myself. Only for you, he replied, handing me a towel. Also, you're never getting that back. We stayed in. He played me his favorite vinyl records, made grilled cheese, sat close beside me on the couch, legs touching, a blanket over both of us. Did you ever think it would feel this easy? I asked, leaning into him. No, he murmured, but I hoped. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't need to. He just pulled me closer and rested his chin on top of my head, whispering stories from his teenage years that made me laugh into his chest. When he walked me to the door, his hands lingered on my waist. I want to kiss you right now, he said, voice rough, but I don't want to rush you. I rose up on my toes and pressed my forehead to his. You can kiss me when you mean it like a promise. He closed his eyes, nodded. Then get ready, he said, because I'm not planning on breaking any. Date 3, moonlight, honesty. By the third date, everything had shifted. It wasn't just chemistry anymore. It was safety, depth, the kind of gravity you only feel with someone who sees you. We walked through a quiet park at night, lit only by the moon and the faint glow of street lamps. I told him about my fears, how I'd always been the girl who felt too much too soon, how I worried I was easy to leave. He stopped walking, turned to face me. I'm not leaving, he said. I blinked, throat tight. How do you know? Because when I look at you, he whispered, stepping closer, I feel like I've been waiting my whole life just to stand in front of you like this. He kissed me then, like he meant it, like he was signing a love letter with his mouth. And when he pulled away, hands still cradling my face, he said the words that carved themselves into me. I don't want to sleep with you until you know it's not just sex for me. My heart felt too big for my ribs. Ethan, I whispered. He smiled, brushing my lips with his again. I'll wait. And I knew he meant it. And so we fell. In between all that were the small things. Text messages that started with, "Good morning, beautiful," and ended with, "I wish you were here." Late night phone calls that turned into, "Stay on the line until you fall asleep." Moments where he brushed my cheek just to look at me longer. Moments where I caught him staring with a softness that made me want to cry. We were real now. Not a performance, not a revenge plot, not a lie, just us. Slow, sweet, and building into something neither of us wanted to run from. And even though the tension simmered, beneath every brush of his fingers, every lingering glance, I never once felt rushed. Because Ethan didn't just want my body, he wanted me. And that was everything. Falling in love with Ethan was like learning to breathe differently. Softer. Deeper. Like I didn't know how deprived I'd been until I had him. We spent quiet mornings at his apartment, sharing coffee and crossword puzzles. Afternoons exploring bookshops and pretending not to read the poetry out loud just to make the other one blush. Evenings curled into each other's arms, watching movies we never finished because we were too busy whispering things like, "If I met you sooner, would we have fallen like this?" I think we were always falling. We just didn't know where we'd land. He made space for me. All of me. Never rushed, never demanding, just there. One night, curled up on the balcony with a blanket around our shoulders and the city stretched out below us, I told him, I used to wonder if I was too much. He leaned in, eyes warm. You're not too much. You're just finally in the right hands. The proposal. He didn't make a spectacle of it. It wasn't skywriting or flash mobs or elaborate puzzles. It was our favorite Saturday morning. Pajamas, music, pancakes slightly burnt around the edges. I turned around to find him on one knee in the middle of my kitchen. No speech, no dramatic gesture. Just his eyes, soft and steady. I don't want a life that doesn't begin and end with you. I gasped. laughed, cried. Is this really happening? He nodded, voice low. Marry me, Zaya. Let me love you in every season, every version. I said yes through tears, through laughter, through the absolute certainty that I'd never been more ready. He slipped the ring onto my finger like he'd done it 1,000 times in his dreams, and then he whispered, You're already my always. This just makes it official. The night before our wedding, I couldn't sleep. Not from nerves, but from awe. From the quiet thrill of knowing that tomorrow, I'd walk towards someone who chose me. Every version of me. The loud, the soft, the broken, the healing. And I knew he was awake too. Because at 2:13 a.m., my phone lit up with a message. Ethan, can't sleep. I keep thinking about your laugh and how tomorrow I get to call you my wife. I smiled, heart fluttering like a girl half my age. Come over. 10 minutes later, he was at my door. Hoodie, sweatpants, barefoot and beautiful in that undone, intimate way only lovers get to see. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. He walked in like he belonged, and he did. I curled into him on the couch, our foreheads pressed together, fingers tracing lazy circles on each other's skin. I don't want to miss a second of this, I whispered. You won't, he said. I'm here. I'm yours. He kissed me then, slow, reverent. Every brush of his lips felt like a vow before the vow. And when he pulled away, his eyes were dark with the weight of every unsaid feeling. I want you to remember this moment, he murmured, when we're standing at the altar, because this, right now, is already everything. I kissed him again, deeper this time, not out of urgency, but out of certainty. And that night, still clothed and cocooned in whispered I love yous, we fell asleep, wrapped around each other like a promise. The wedding. The ceremony was small, elegant, wrapped in white roses and golden afternoon light. I walked down the aisle in a silk gown that shimmered like moonlight, my heart a drum in my chest. And there he was, Ethan, in a midnight blue suit, eyes locked on me like the rest of the world had disappeared. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, just smiled that crooked, awestruck smile that said, You're it. You've always been it. My hands didn't tremble when I reached for him. His thumb brushed over mine, grounding me. And then the vows. He didn't read from a card. He spoke from his heart, voice trembling in places he tried to steady. I used to think love was something that happened all at once, like lightning. But loving you has been like sunrise, slow, steady, impossible to ignore. And now that you're here, I don't want to look away. Tears slid silently down my cheeks. And mine? I thought I'd been in love before. But with you, it's not about the rush. It's the safety, the way you see me, even the parts I hide, and still choose me, every time. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden, not even David's. Yes, David was there, standing in the crowd, jaw tight, hands fisted in his pockets like he wanted to rewrite time. But he couldn't, because Ethan had already rewritten me, and was his. We kissed as husband and wife under a sky full of sun and soft wind. Not a kiss for the cameras, a kiss that sealed something sacred. That night, the first time as us. Our wedding night wasn't rushed or showy. It was soft lighting, music low, the faint scent of vanilla and skin. I stood in front of him in nothing but a silk slip and the moon. He looked at me like I was everything he'd ever prayed for but never believed he'd have. You're breathtaking, he whispered, stepping closer, fingertips brushing over my bare shoulders, down my arms. You've been patient, I said, voice quiet but steady. I'd wait 1,000 years for you, he replied. When he kissed me, it was worship, like every inch of me deserved to be memorized. We didn't rush. His hands, his mouth, every touch was gentle but hungry, like he needed to feel everything but didn't want to overwhelm. And when we finally came together, it wasn't just sex, it was poetry. It was laughter between gasps and forehead kisses after moans. It was love, raw, deep, and undeniable. Later, tangled in the sheets and the softness of each other, he whispered, Do you know what my favorite sound in the world is? What? You. Saying my name when you're happy, when you're safe. Ethan, I whispered, smiling into his chest. I'm happy, I'm safe, I'm yours. He kissed the top of my head, held me tighter, and I'm yours, always. David left the wedding early. I heard later that he told someone, she never looked at me like I was home. And he was right. Because Ethan wasn't just my husband. He was my beginning, my ending, my every chapter in between. And as I looked over at him now, lying in bed, smile sleepy, fingers tracing circles on my ring, I knew the story we were writing together would never need edits, only more pages.